Hello plant friends. Hope you guys all are doing well and happy and healthy and spending a lot of time with your loved ones. In this episode, I want to talk about plant addiction. I will be honest with you, when I first heard this term thrown around a few months back, I was like, really? That's a bit excessive. That word was the first thing that came to my mind, excessive, right? Plant addiction, is that the same as alcohol addiction, gambling addiction? Excessive. But the more I thought about it, the more I've realized that, during this pandemic and quarantine, the plant hobby has, significantly increased in popularity, and how expensive plants are these days. I've realized that plant addiction can be a very real problem in our plant community. Mental health professionals, if you guys want to correct me, but as far as I know, it's not really, addiction is not really the medical term. The medical terms you're most likely going to hear or be familiar with is the terms use, abuse, and dependence. Dependence we're not really going to talk that much about because it really doesn't apply, I don't think, to the plant community. Dependence is more of like you use a substance so much that your body becomes dependent on it, and then when you take that substance away, your body has physical reactions, right? A lot of us know this as withdrawal, right? So, you're used to the substance, you take it away, your body develops physical withdrawal symptoms. So I don't think this really applies to plants. I assume that like if your plant dies or you lose a plant or it has root rot, some of us may cry or hyperventilate or get really angry, but not the same, right? So I think when we're talking about plant addiction, we're gonna focus on use and abuse, right? I would say a majority of the plant community is we would call it plant users. Right, so we can be small users or prolific users or exorbitant users, right? But that, I would say that's kind of mostly what I would classify most hobbyists as. When we go towards abuse, or plant, I guess, abusers, plant abusers, which I think when people are talking about the term plant addiction, that's sort of where they're leaning. Abuse usually implies that there's a negative or harmful effect from whatever you're doing, whether it be financial or time or effort, or are the plants causing issues with your marriage or issues with your family or issues with your work or other aspects of your life. If that's the case, then I think plant abuse could be an understandable term, and I think that's kind of what people are talking about when they're talking about plant addiction. So when we're talking about any sort of addiction, there's usually a stimulus involved. Let's just say that you're at a bar watching a sports game with crowds and a lot of your friends and stuff, and you're cheering and stuff. So in that environment with that stimulus, you're much more likely to probably drink more if you have a propensity to drink. You probably consume a lot more chicken wings, right? Like if you were at home watching the game on TV by yourself, like how many chicken wings are you really eating? Right? So I hope you guys understand that there's a sort of like stimulus and environment that plays a part or a factor when we're talking about use and abuse. In the plant community, I think that over the last year or several years, there's been a huge influx of, I guess, plant availability and sources for you to buy from, right? Like eBay, Instagram, Facebook groups, Facebook Marketplace, private seller web pages, right? There are like so many venues where you can buy plants now. So I think that's probably allowed for more plant abuse. And I think it's hard to talk about plant addiction and not talk about Facebook purge groups, right? I'm not saying that plant purge groups are bad or evil or anything like that. Just like I'm not saying that like dinner parties are bad, right? Or bars or lounges or anything like that are bad, right? They're not. They are what they are, and there's a time, a place, a need. There's a business. There's people with financial incentives behind it, and people who are using those venues to make money and feed their families and kids and stuff. So I'm not saying that any of that is bad, but I think that it's hard to deny that Facebook purge groups create an environment that promotes impulsivity, right? Impulsive buying. You know, you're in those purge groups, you're chatting with your friends, there's tons of friends, and you guys are like, you know, tagging each other, there's banter, and they're like, go, 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 buy, you know, and everyone's just like, you know, clicking as fast as they can so that they don't miss out on the plan, right? There's this like FOMO, right? Fear of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out on this particular plan that is realistically artificially created, right? Because there's tons of plans, right? Like if you didn't buy a plan on the purge groups and you really, really wanted that plan, you can get that plan tons of other places, especially so these days, right? That this might not have been true a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, where there were less venues and available sellers, but now there's like so many options. So I feel like the plant purge groups really do play on this impulsiveness or impulsive buying atmosphere. I'm not saying that's, again, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm not saying that that's malicious or not malicious. You know, like I'm not judging any of that. I'm just saying that that it is what it is. And I think it's hard to deny that. Solutions. Are there solutions to addiction? Of course. If you guys think you have a problem, the most important part, I think, is to identify the stimulus, right? Why is it that, you know, you're buying so many plants? Is it the ease, the availability of money? Is it the vast amount of buying venues, right? Is it the pressure from friends? Is it a competition or something? Is it because of social media and, you know, you want pretty pictures or, you know, like, it could be anything, right? It could be anything. It could be multiple things. It could just be one big thing. But whatever it is, identify what the stimulus is for you and try to address it. If it's impulsivity, right? Like, you kind of have to figure out what it is, figure out what's allowing for that impulsivity to manifest itself into these purchases and sort of address them. A good way to combat impulsivity is sort of like put on the brakes a little bit, right? I think that's obvious, right? But you know, like if you can just like put on the brakes for a little bit, an hour, a day, right? Just a little bit of time can really make a difference. I'm gonna share with you guys what I'm addicted to. I am addicted to pizza. I think people who talk to me, people who are really close to me, they know I am addicted to pizza. I love pizza. But I'm also trying to stay healthy and in shape, right? So you know, I can't eat pizza as often as I want. So what I do when I was in, or what I did when I was in much better shape, was that every time I had a pizza craving, I would wait a day. Basically, anytime I had a pizza craving, I would say, hey, I'm gonna wait a day. And if the next day I still had that craving, I would go and I eat the pizza. Oftentimes, just waiting that day, tomorrow I would be so busy or occupied or, you know, something else that I just wouldn't have that craving. Just waiting that day, for me, allowing that impulsivity and that craving to possibly just like wane and go away and be forgotten makes a big difference for me. You know, I think an example or an extension of this to the plant community would be like, if you're like, you really want this plant, right? Okay, give yourself a week, maybe a month, you know, and by the end of that, if you're still really big on that plant, then yeah, like you love that plant. But sometimes it's just a hype, right? It's just a phase. Sometimes that's just the flavor of the Instagram plant month, right? And you know, afterwards you just might be like, oh, I really don't like it after all, or I don't need it after all. So anyways, that's my suggestion. Hopefully it works. I don't recommend a plant ban, right? I don't recommend. I know that people are doing that and promoting or something like that. That's just not a thing I recommend, just because I don't believe that bans or like quitting things like cold turkey is the solution to addiction, right? I just don't. I think that addiction requires you know, gradual changes. It requires conscious effort over time, small, manageable, persistent steps. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's it for my spiel. Hope you guys like the content. If you guys do want to support the channel, here is a t-shirt you guys can buy. Please like, subscribe. Definitely comment below what you guys think or don't think or like or don't like. And until next time, happy planting.